Movement is one of the things that can be incredibly difficult for players to master. Some players don't even realize that their movement is a factor that is holding them back. I know for myself, for the longest time as I was improving, I didn't even realize how bad my movement really was. People would sometimes comment on my old highlight videos and tell me, good plays, but the movement needs work. And honestly, I would get defensive over it, replying, your mom needs work. But in reality, not only did their mom not need work, they were right. My movement did need some work. So today what we're going to do is watch a couple of rounds from one of our viewer submitted VoD reviews from the Discord, and let's talk about the movement errors that we can find. And then we'll compare them to some movement clips from the Radiant players here at SkillCapped. If that sounds good to you, let's get into it, starting out with our first clip submitted by JD. The first round we're going to be taking a look at, we're actually going to slow down just a bit so you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. Movement is difficult in Valorant because your character is only truly accurate when you're standing still. Even on pistol rounds, this is still the same thing. Now, how inaccurate you are varies depending on what gun you're using. Sometimes you can get away with run and gunning, but for the most part, this is why it's important to master counter-strafing so that you can be moving as much as possible while also still being accurate. You'll notice in this clip, JD has this problem of throwing in these little micro stutter movements when he's shooting, and because of this, it causes some of his shots to land literally just not where he's aiming. And the RNG comes through on the first kill for him, but it doesn't end up coming through on the second or third kill. And that just showcases the idea of relying on RNG for your kills. This is why it's so important to actually master your movement, because his aim for the most part is at the very least on for the third kill, and he actually ends up missing every single shot on this jet before getting killed. And all of this was caused by these little micro stutters that he keeps doing with his movement. Let's take a look at one of Akimbo's pistol rounds now though. Akimbo is a Radiant level coach that we've been working with on our website to show you guys exactly how the top tier players in the game think and how they can carry their games. And if you wanted to check out this full VOD, by the way, of Akimbo and his commentary, that will all be available on our website, link in the description below. But notice how in this example, Akimbo is going to be using the Frenzy, which is arguably a more difficult weapon to use than the Ghost at a distance, but due to some clean movement and discipline with the trigger, he's going to actually pick up 3 kills from a pretty decent range. Each one of these kills that Akimbo gets throughout the round, you'll notice how his movements aren't really sporadic. Starting out with the first kill on the enemy jet, notice how Akimbo peeks the angle, not directly from the corner, but backed up a bit as to reduce the amount of angle advantage he needs to deal with. Along with this, notice how he also clears each angle individually before swinging the jet, using the slicing the pie method that we've talked about before on the channel. Then once he TPs back sight, he's able to find a duel onto the enemy Omen on rafters. This is probably the most awkward encounter that he has in the clip, and he finds himself in the middle of the open. But again, even though he misses his first burst here, he still is able to cleanly strafe to the side, let his accuracy reset, and then fire off another burst of bullets. There's no panic in his movement right here. Everything he does is intentional and clean. The reason he was in the open in the first place is because he wanted to peek CT as to protect the bomb planter, so even there is a reason of why he was caught so exposed here. Then, finally he kills the enemy KO here. Once again, you'll notice he strafes out of cover, quickly counter strafes, and then with good crosshair placement fires off a burst of bullets to finish him off. All of his movements here are intentional and clean, and when he's fighting players, he's always using A and D to strafe, rather than pressing W like JD was during his gunfights in the first clip. Let's take a look at another round from JD though, because as we always say, one round is not normally enough to get the full story. Our next round is going to be taking place on a buy round from JD, and it seems like he's favoring the Vandal on Breeze, but the thing you need to keep in mind when using the Vandal is that it's a pretty tap fire heavy weapon. And with this, it's a relatively mobile weapon too, because during the downtime of those taps and burst, there's really no reason for you to not be strafing in between. You'll notice JD does a good job of picking up the first kill with some decent crosshair placement, but the duel I want to talk about specifically takes place a little bit later in the round. Notice how when JD takes this duel versus the enemy Killjoy, she's actually so close to the box that she doesn't end up being blinded by his leer. But on top of that, JD swings super wide and stands completely still when taking this duel versus the Spectre. The leer really isn't the best blind in the game, and he's lucky that the enemy Sage decided to run from it rather than shooting it, because if she had just shot it, suddenly JD is immediately exposed to 2 targets with literally no cover nearby. As well as, notice how he doesn't really have a great angle on the Killjoy from this position. But had he peeked just a little bit more tight, he exposes a lot less of himself, as well as gives him a better angle to fight this Killjoy. That way, if he does whiff his shots like this, he can back up into cover, reset, and then give it another shot if he wants, or he can literally just leave. He doesn't need to push this. This is one of the biggest things that I see get lower ranked players killed, and that's just full committing to every single gunfight. I can't stress this enough in my videos. It is so incredibly easy to hit a target who is standing still and full committing to fights when they don't have to is such a terrible idea. Meanwhile, you'll notice that after he swings wide, he doubles down and full commits to a spray on this killjoy without moving. I think it's funny because when you're learning Valorant, you're always told to stand still when you shoot, and obviously this doesn't change when you're a higher rank, but now you need to start to teach yourself to incorporate movement when you shoot as well. You're still going to be standing still when you shoot, but you need to move between your shots when you miss. Look at this next clip from JD where he fires off literally an entire magazine while hardly ever giving his gun time to reset or reposition. Like, this sort of play in a diamond lobby is unacceptable. You're going to whiff shots, but you need to reset when you do so. You can't just double down and hope that your 24th bullet hits. You need to reset. And some of these things might seem kind of nitpicky, but they really do end up making a big deal in the long run. And to showcase an extreme example of what this stuff looks like, let's take a look at one of our Smurf commentaries from former top 20 Radiant player, Padawan. Like I said, this is an extreme example of these sorts of things in use, but if Padawan doesn't play this situation perfectly, there's no way that he wins this round. Take a look at the players left alive in the round. Obviously, you'll see Padawan is in a 1v5, but he actually ends up winning this round. And the reason for that is because he precisely peeks as to only expose himself to a few angles, isolates all encounters, and falls back when he's in a situation where he's going to get pressured. Even a top 20 Radiant player loses this round if he overpeaks. He's not some sort of god, and he still needs to follow the rules of the game. And the rules of the game are, whenever possible, you only expose yourself to one enemy at a time. Notice how Padawan doesn't ever full commit to a gunfight either. The only time he ever really exposes himself a lot is when he's gunfighting this enemy Jet on top of the Sage Wall, but the reason he does this is because he knows he's still in a 1v3 and he needs to narrow down the odds with whatever engagements he can take right now. Even when the Raze satchels into him at the end, he doesn't just full commit to the crouch spray that he was doing. He backs up, gives himself time to reset, and then re-peeks her, sealing the round for his team. Listen to some of his commentary after the round for his thought process during the clutch.
Okay, I'm gonna back up more. The only reason I backed out is because I know they're gonna rush at me, and so if I could play 1v1 picks in a situation where they're all rushing at me, it's very easy to hit people in the head when they're just straight up rushing you. So very important to back out when you're in a 1v5 situation, because you'll be able to pick off one or two. Normally you shouldn't be killing everyone on the other team, but luckily we got away with it and we got an ace, save the round for our team.
Alright guys, one last thing that we need to talk about though is ADS, or aim down sights. And I'm not actually a hater of ADS. There are plenty of people who will tell you to never do this. What I'm going to tell you is plenty of professional players ADS, so clearly it's not always a bad idea. That being said, in many situations it is a terrible idea, and let me tell you why. There are 6 different speeds of movement when using a rifle. There are your running speed, running ADS, your walking speed, walk ADS, and your crouching speed, and then crouching ADS. And if you've ever heard people say not to walk peak angles because it's really slow, it's probably easy to put together that you shouldn't ADS peak angles either, because this is the 3rd slowest peak that you can possibly do. ADS can be really good if you're holding down a long angle and you're just looking for a quick headshot before running away. However, ADS is not a good idea for when you're looking to peek an angle or you're trying to control anything other than a tap fire. It's really easy to react to somebody who's peeking an angle this slow, and that's why rather than peeking the pyramids like this, what I recommend is doing something similar to what Akimbo did when he was clearing B site with a frenzy. And that's you should throw in little jiggles and just try to see if you can spot an enemy. It's not like you were required to take a duel with players in cave right now. You're literally just peeking this for information, and you're under no immediate threat. This is a mistake that so many players make with their movement. Not every single time you peek an angle, your intention has to be to get a kill. It's totally okay to peek an angle just for information and then make decisions based off of that info. And that all comes down to movement, really. Clearly this player wants to take a duel because they're using the slowest peek possible with the intentions of making their shot more accurate. But instead, you can make your shot slightly less accurate, but infinitely more safe. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. Do I want a peek that is slightly more accurate, but 50% more dangerous, or a peek that is slightly less accurate, but hardly dangerous at all? That's all we've got for the video today, though. And if you wanted to catch either Padawan's or Akimbo's full game with all of the commentary, that is all available on the website, link in the description below. This video is also part of a full course that we have available on the website, where we cover so much related to movement and positioning, so you can find that all on the website as well. Other than that, I hope this video was helpful, and if you guys enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel down below. It really does help us out. As always, my name is King, and we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.